The next ruler is our 1/2 and 1/4 ruler.
It's easy to use because the marks on the ruler are for finished-sized triangles.
The ruler eliminates the math. Seam allowances are already included.
It's designed to cut both half-square and quarter-square triangles from fabric strips.
No more cutting squares and then dividing them in half or in quarters.
And basic instructions are printed right on the ruler.
It's a great ruler for scrap quilts because strips you use are in 1/2 inch or inch increments, so you can also easily cut squares from the strips.
All right, let's take a closer look at the ruler. First of all, we have lines going in 2 different directions on the ruler. The black lines run parallel to the hypotenuse or long side of the ruler. You will use these lines to cut quarter-square triangles.
And it's easy to do because there's a little icon on the ruler that shows you how those are cut from the strip. It's just diagrammed out there. It shows you where the grain goes on the long side of the triangle, and it says right there, quarter square triangles.
You know, and I made a real point to put that on these rulers because I hate it when my ruler gets separated from the basic instructions.
Which happens immediately.
Which happens immediately in my sewing room anyway. So now the instructions are attached right to the ruler.
Right, so for example, if we wanted to cut a quarter square triangle that, let's say, had a 5-inch finished base, we find that 5-inch increment on our ruler, and it's easy to find because it's in this yellow dot with the number 5. Then I follow that line out here to the edge of my ruler where I have all the strip widths are lined up here that I need. So let's look again. We find the 5 inches. That's what we want our finished size to be. We follow it out here to the edge, and that tells me to cut a 3-inch wide strip to make those pieces.
And we'll be showing you how to do that in just a little bit.
Okay.
But let's show you the other half of the ruler. It was called the 1/2 and 1/4 ruler, and we're going to look at the features now for cutting half-square triangles. And for that, you will use the yellow lines on the ruler.
Once again, there is a little icon here that diagrams. You know, we quilters are so visual. This makes it really easy for us to know what we're cutting. The half-square triangles are ones that have the straight grain on the leg, on those adjacent legs of the triangle. So here's our icon showing where those grains are, and it says half-square triangles right by the icon.
And that's how we'll cut those pieces from our strip, too.
So say, for example, we wanted a half-square triangle that had legs that finished 3 inches. Here again, the finished size is in the yellow dot, and then I go over to the edge of the triangle, or the ruler, because my strip widths are on the edge, and so here's the 3-inch, and here's 3.5 inches, so I instantly know that I need to cut a 3.5-inch wide strip.
So let's demonstrate how to do this, and we're going to first point out a block that would use both types of triangle.
This is a neat block because they're both in there. One type that we talked about first is the quarter square triangle. It's very important, I'm sure you've all learned this, either the easy way or the hard way, that you always want straight grain to the outside edge of your block. And so when we use a triangle this way in a design, we want that hypotenuse or that long side of our triangle to be on straight grain. And this block uses 2 of those triangles in each quadrant.
And they would be what would be called quarter square triangles.
Exactly.
All right, the other type of triangle that you have in the block is a half-square triangle, and that would normally be cut by cutting a square and cutting it in half, but we're going to cut those pieces with our special ruler. We would use the yellow lines to cut those.
Right, and the important thing here, just as we said before, is you want that straight grain of your fabric so that your block is not all stretched out of shape. And we want that to be on straight grain. We want the 2 adjacent sides of the triangle to be on straight grain. Those are our half-square triangles.
So let's pretend like we're going to make this unit, the basic unit for this block, to be a 4-inch unit so that our block would finish 8 inches.
Okay.
For our first step, let's cut the quarter square triangles.
Okay, so here let's turn our ruler around so it's oriented for everybody to see. And we're talking about making a 4-inch unit. So that long side of that quarter square triangle needs to finish 4 inches. So I'm going to look on my ruler here, and I find the 4-inch dot, the number 4 in there, so that's my finished side. And so I just come on out here, and I see that I need to cut a strip 2.5 inches wide to get those pieces. And I've got strips already here that are 2.5 inches wide, and I want 2 different fabrics because I need 2 in that block. So I'm going to stack them together here, and I'm going to turn my ruler around.
Now you're going to put the 4-inch mark on one raw edge of your strip.
And I'm going to just check, make sure I don't lose anything on my underneath
Oh, yeah,
one
that's
right
always
there.
good.
Yeah, that would be
I hate
sad.
that when that happens.
Okay, so
to me.
I could be a little, I don't have to be quite as wasteful. I can move it over.
And there's a little black tip at the end of the triangle, and that little black tip will also be lined up with, the edge of that will be lined up with the other raw edge of the strip.
The base of it rests on that line. Okay, so I'm going to reach for my
rotary cutter.
And I'm going to cut, I'm just going to scoot over here a little bit. Oops. And I'm going to cut up one side and down the other. Make sure I got it. Oops.
Yeah, that's always a little hard to do, but I hate moving my strip around because then I really do make a mess of things.
So there's my first set of triangles that are quarter square triangles. Now I just flip my ruler around and I line up that 4-inch or that 4-inch finish. I'm putting my dot, so easy to find. That line on one edge of my strip, and then my little tip of my ruler is resting on the other edge. Okay.
And you just work your way back and forth across the strip, cutting triangles like that.
And my straight grain is on that long edge, so my block will not be bad news.
Yeah, right, it won't stretch.
Okay.
And that edge will finish 4 inches. All right, now we want to talk about how to cut the half square triangles for that same mythical block that we're making. So we know for our 4-inch unit that the triangle legs, the two sides, need to be 4 inches.
Right.
So we look at the yellow section of the ruler, we follow down to find the 4-inch mark. It's in a circle. Come over and it will tell us that our strip width will be 4.5 inches wide. So we've pre-cut a strip that's 4.5 inches wide, and we need to pick up the ruler and turn it on the strip, and we're cutting 4-inch finished half square triangles, so we put the 4-inch mark along the raw edge of the ruler.
Easy to see.
And one of the things that you'll notice is that at the tip of the ruler, there's a shaded triangle that's shaded yellow, and that will all hang off the edge of the strip so that those triangles are blunted on one end. Now, you've not lost anything important here.
No.
What you've lost are those little triangle tips that you always have to cut off after you've sewn these pieces together. They're just gone to start with, but it makes the math really easy for you.
It sure does.
So we're going to cut up one side of the ruler, and now I'm going to reach across and come down this side to cut our first piece. And we've got 2 triangles because I'm cutting with a double layer. Now I turn the ruler around again, put my 4-inch mark along the raw edge. My little tip, the line for my little tip is again on the raw edge. And I will cut. And we would continue down the strip to cut the pieces. Let's lay those out for a minute.
Okay, let's do that. Here's our half square triangle. Here's one of our quarter square triangles. And here's the other one. Okay? Another thing I'd like to demonstrate that makes this ruler so cool is that if you also need squares that are the same size as your half square triangles, you can cut those with your regular ruler from the same strip because we've only added a 1/2 inch.
And I love that when I'm making scrap quilts.
Right, it's neat.
So we have a 4.5 inch strip. So we were cutting 4-inch finished half square triangles. We can come back now and cut a 4.5 inch square that will finish 4 inches and match right up with those triangles.
And I'm going to use my basic ruler to do that. I'm just going to line up my 4.5 inches on this 4.5 inch wide strip. Cut that off, and I've got 2 squares that I can match up with some of the other triangles that I cut from other fabrics.
So you can use the half and quarter ruler to cut the pieces for most of the patchwork blocks that you'll be making.